technology is not going to replace that piece. It could help you get to that person a little bit faster, but it's not going to get you the motivation behind the why. We are definitely looking out for the other person on the end of the phone more than we're looking out for, hey, where's the next placement? And people nowadays are more going to destinations where they want to live and then figure out work around that versus, okay, I'm going to go where the work is.
Welcome back to Talent Hunters, powered by MRI Network, where each week we talk with the world's top talent strategists and executive recruiters. If you want to build talented teams that drive your company to big goals and big growth, then this podcast is for you. And now, let's join the conversation with today's episode of Talent Hunters.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Vince Holt, host of the Talent Hunters. Today we have Blake Chastain, owner of Management Recruiters of Zionsville, located in Indiana. Now, Blake has been successfully recruiting for over 20 years. But right now, today, his team and Blake are ranked 19th in the world. That's a heck of a statement. But in his spare time, running an office and making great gobs of money, he trains for triathlons. Congratulations and welcome, Blake.
Thanks, Vince. Glad to be here.
So, Blake, just tell us a little bit about your background and really what's got you to where you are today in your career journey.
Yeah. So went to school for accounting and realized a few years into that was not for me. So got out of school and just took to sales and ran a sales organization, a direct sales company for about 7-8 years, and was looking for a change and kind of did recruiting on the sales side for that role. And then just kind of stumbled into recruiting based on a old family friend that I went to high school with. He owned Management Recruiters in Zionsville, and one thing led to another and brought in a couple interviews and then got started that way. So just kind of stumbled into it.
That's a great story. It really is. I'm a firm believer that every child is a born salesperson. Because if you think about it, the first thing they start doing when they first start talking is to convince their parents to do it their way. That's sales. So I'm a firm believer. No matter what your education is, no matter what your goals are, there's sales deep down inside, even if you aren't, quote unquote, a salesperson.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
So can you give us a basic overview of what's your specialty, your dig, and your office specialties?
Sure. And going back when I first got started, Jim Rudy, who started the office, who hired me, goes, Blake, you could get into accounting finance type of roles. I know you got an accounting degree, or you could get into sales roles within construction materials. And I'm sitting there going, okay, I don't remember anything from accounting and I don't know anything about construction. But I know salespeople. So I'm like, all right, well, we'll try this construction material thing. And he goes, oh, by the way, we've never done that before. So it was starting from scratch, kind of learned as I went, asked good questions, and then just played, hey, but I don't know. Can you tell me more about that? Just asked a lot of questions, and you get people that love to talk about their careers, and you kind of learn that way. So kind of built from there, and then over time got more niched into the civil construction space on the material side. So for myself, my desk, I'm primarily looking for engineers that are going to transition into business development or sales engineering type of roles from there. And then broadly as an office, we've got a team of 3 that gets into the manufacturing space across different industries. So anything within a plant that could be on the floor, could be engineering, could be HR, it could be accounting, finance. So real broad within that. And then also we do have an engineering and architectural design desk as well. That's our main focuses right now. We've been into pharmaceutical, medical, supply chain, transportation over the years as well. But those are the main three industries that we're in right now.
So you had to have struggled a bit in 2020 with COVID.
Yeah, that was an interesting time. So
what did you do? How did you posture your environment, your office, and so forth? Everybody struggled during COVID. But how did you posture yourself to get out of COVID?
Well, I think one is we've got a good team, and just kind of put our head down and worked every day and just kind of took it as it went. And when I got started here, 19 years ago, I didn't have a plan B. So, when you don't have a plan B, you got to stick with what you know. And it was just talking to people. How can we help? There wasn't really a sales focus, but more, hey, we're there for you. And we had really good clients over time, so you kind of just fought through that. And then luckily the tides turned in 21 and 22. So it was kind of just stick-to-itiveness to keep going.
It's the root of every good recruiter. It really is. So obviously they had to go home, I'm assuming, during COVID. Now, have all your people come back now, or are you working some home, some in the office? What's your structure now?
Yeah, we moved, it was probably 2017 to kind of more of a hybrid type of schedule well before COVID. So luckily when that happened and people had to go home, it didn't impact us at all. I mean, we were already set up to work that way. So we're kind of a mix right now. There's a couple of us that come into the office every single day, and then everybody else is fully remote. And that was new for me because when I got started, it was, 8 hours a day in the office. So luckily technology, and you hire the right people and you give them the trust and the support, that we've been wildly successful.
So you bring up technology. Interesting subject. Technology is changing faster than I can think nowadays. How are you keeping up with technology?
Personally, probably not as good as others. So I've got a couple people on the team that are much more tech savvy than I to keep up on what are some of the new tips and tricks that are out there. I do think some of that can be helpful, but for what we do in recruiting, it's still a conversation with a person, to, a professional, or a conversation with a company to really understand what their needs and motivations and desires are. And technology is not going to replace that piece. It could help you get to that person a little bit faster, but it's not going to get you the motivation behind the why. Why do they have a need, or why are they open to new things? So that's still, everything still drives to having a conversation over the phone.
I'm so glad to hear you say that, because it's been my rule of thumb that when you text, email, or do anything in print, what is said usually is not what is heard. Whereas when you have a conversation, you can respond immediately. When you say, we ask them why, they give a reason why, you can respond immediately with another question to dig a little deeper. So, boy, I support that 100%. That's old school.
Yeah, and it's hard to, the tone of an email is usually what you think it is, and it might not be what it actually is. So, but yeah, everything that we do is to drive to having a conversation and see where it goes.
So Blake, what makes your organization, and I'm saying this in a humble way, so please expand on it, but what makes your organization better than your competition?
Well, I mean, I think some of it is the people on the team. That they have really strong ethics. We're very humble in what we do. We are definitely looking out for the other person on the end of the phone more than we're looking out for, hey, where's the next placement? That short-term transactional mindset. It's much more long-term. Let me understand a little bit more in being super honest with people of, hey, this is not going to be a good fit for you, or I don't think you should move forward with this candidate in the interview process. So I think it's always, and it's what I've tried to instill over the years is, hey, you got to look out for them more than looking out for yourself with it. Because the transactional piece, you might make one placement, but that's where it's going to end. It's more long-term focus with that. And I think that this goes back to getting the right people on the team, and then, training them that way to look out for others than themselves, I guess, kind of the golden rule.
Boy, you're so right. If you're on the phone with a candidate or a hiring authority, make the entire conversation about them, because to your point, they like to talk about themselves, even if it isn't a boisterous type of conversation, but it gives you the opportunity to ask that 3-letter most important word of why constantly. And you learn so much, and people appreciate that. Good for you. Good for you. What do? You explain the trust and building the trust and making the conversation about them. But what do you feel that your people do that truly cements trust from either a candidate or a hiring authority?
I would say just being genuine, and not being a robot or this is my pitch. It's more fluid in a conversation of, hey, why would you be open to something new? And just leave it open-ended with it. A lot of what we do is just a conversation with people and seeing what their likes or dislikes are. And, I think listening is a big key, asking good questions, good follow-up questions with companies and candidates. I think that helps build the trust and being genuine, and you're not just pitching what you have. I think that brings a lot of trust to ask questions about them. So I know that's kind of rambly, but I would say that would be the biggest thing.
No, I think you hit it right on the head, and not enough people listen enough. They're so consumed with what they have to say. You personalize the call because you make it about them, and then you listen to them. Great training. Where'd you learn that?
Not a got a widget, need a widget type of conversation with it.
So the construction industry, how is your industry as a whole dealing with because I'm making my own assumption here, how is your industry dealing with the hybrid work, work from home coming in? Are your people, and I'm not talking about your employees, but in your industry, don't they all have to be there on site?
Yeah, I guess depending on the role. So yeah, if they're on a construction site, yeah, they're going to be there. If they're in a sales role, they're most times were already remote before. But on the design side, that was a big shift because most engineering and architectural firms, they were in the office. I mean, all the software servers were all hosted. The idea of remote was pretty foreign to that industry. So it was a challenge where some, depending on where they lived, never went remote. So yeah, in certain areas, in other areas, they had to learn how to do that on the fly, technology wise, to be able to do that. And I think for some, it's been a challenge to get people back in for collaboration. I think there's some that, depending on the type of role, yeah, you could do it remote, but I think that is a challenge. And once people got accustomed to it, it is difficult to say, hey, you got to be in the office, however many days a week, because there are some that their definition of remote is remote anywhere in the world I want to live to work. And that's still a little foreign for me to understand that piece. So I think on some clients are challenged with that, because they're not flexible one way or the other with it. So on our end, it's, conveying, okay, you tell us where you could budge, and then we'll work around that. So again, that goes back to the listening piece of, hey, hybrid's an option. Okay, we'll talk to people that's an option. If in the office is full time, we're going to address that right up front. And the candidate pool will be less. I mean, that's the reality nowadays. It just is less because of that, especially when you get into major markets where commuting comes into play as well.
Do you find that there's been a bit of an upswing in potential relocations, getting people from outside the area, or no change at all?
I think the relocations is still way down. I think that's still the rarity for most companies in general. They choose just trying to stay away from it, and it's hard, nowadays with that, just with interest rates that are higher now too. It's hard to move, and people nowadays are more going to destinations where they want to live and then figure out work around that versus, okay, I'm going to go where the work is and make that home. That's definitely been a change as well.
Yeah. I'm a guy that got moved around North Dakota. I'm from the Pacific Northwest and lived in Idaho, North Dakota, Northern California, all because of the job. I'm such an old dog that this work from home has taken me so far out of my comfort zone. It's not funny. I mean, I really have a hard time relating to it. And good for you for starting it before you were forced to do it, because it gives you more of a comfort zone.
Yeah, it was. We were lucky, put it that way, to not have all the tools, all the systems, all the technology was already set up. I mean, so it didn't impact us at all. So.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. So as you look back, whether it was you doing your own recruiting or your office, is there a placement that really stands out that you wear as kind of a badge of, we did everything right here?
I don't know if there's one as a badge. I think the feedback from candidates after the fact of, hey, we're so grateful and thankful and can't imagine where we're at right now. I think there's some of that. Is there one that is that badge of honor? No, is there, because most times we're not thought of again, and I realize that, and some of them you stay in contact with for 15 years, you build kind of that long-term relationship with them. But I think seeing somebody grow is probably the biggest piece, or helping a company build out a new team, that piece of it. But I wouldn't say one specific story, that's kind of the badge of honor or anything like that.
Do you find, and I know some people keep track of this, I think I did for the first few years, but do you keep track at all of, not an exact number, but the length of time some of your placements stay employed at those companies? Is there a high turnover, I guess, is what I'm trying to say, in construction?
I haven't tracked that. In the sales world, there's typically a higher turnover than other ones. But no, that's nothing that I've tracked. specifically. I mean, I can look back at, I think it was probably in my first 6 months placement wise, somebody I placed there that's still with the same company, we're talking 18 years. So that there's that I remember. But the tenure there, I wouldn't know the exact range for that.
What makes you most proud of what your people do?
I think the effort, their enthusiasm on helping others, seeing them grow personally and financially. I kind of took the approach when I started managing and hiring and then owning an office, is giving people the opportunity that was given to me, almost 20 years ago. I joke with my wife that I wish I would have started 2 years earlier, So it's that opportunity to be able to help develop, be able to provide for my family, have a great income opportunity if you're successful, and work hard at it. So I think seeing them grow personally and professionally, I think is probably the biggest reward that I get.
Boy, that's wonderful. Who stands out in your development as far as helping you succeed? I mean, 20 years ago, the MRI company was dramatically different. Who helped you get to where you are today?
I would say probably 3 people that kind of stand out. Jim Rudy, who was an owner who hired me, who was my mentor, who kind of took me under my wings. And even when it was tough, hard times at the beginning, he said, okay, no, you got it. Don't worry about it. We'll take care of you. All those things that gave me the confidence to keep going from there. We had a tenured account executive, Frank, that was probably 10 years in the business. That was phenomenal in what he did. And he was the type person that, hey, you got a question, you got an answer. I mean, he would spend as much time as you need to help me, new. And then we had a project coordinator that kind of teamed up with me when I was new and got more business. And she was like, helped me get to the next level with that. And she's retired now, but we've still stayed in touch over that period of time too. So I think that type of environment that I had when I first got started, it's continued here to where people will help out others, to where they can go to others in the office and bounce ideas or questions or even frustrations with each other. That is very much a team, even though the other person might not be getting any reward out of it. So it's more, hey, if you win, we all win type of mindset.
What a great attitude. It's a great attitude. What trends do you foresee, Blake, of your organization over the next 5 years? I don't want to go farther than that because it gets unrealistic then.
Right. Trends as far as like industry?
Trends as far as your development of you, your office, your people. What do you feel is going to help you as you look into with vision? What do you feel is going to help you get to the next step of where you want to be?
I think moving people along in their process to where we've got, from 6 years to 1 year worth of experience. So getting each of them to the next level of growth and helping them take the next step there, which obviously pushes me as well, building a bench to eventually take over some of what I do, kind of that succession planning out for the next 15 years. What's that going to look like from there? I think constantly looking at, business development across the board in the office of, hey, where are some opportunities that could help everybody in the office? And then, on the owner side, continuously looking at hiring, always having that in the back of your mind to look at. I was told this early on of like, you got to be prepared. You drive in the office, you might be the only one there. So things can change. So always being prepared for that, to take it to continue the momentum and keep growing.
It leads me, I've never even gone into this with anybody on this venue, but when you're hiring somebody, what are you really looking for outside of chemistry?
I'd say a few things. Somebody who's inquisitive, because if they're going to ask me questions, they'll ask, companies or candidates questions. So if they're inquisitive, if they have had some success in something, they won somewhere in life. I want to see that, because that tells me they have a little stick-to-itiveness to them. And then are they going to fit in here? We joke, do they play well in the sandbox together? I think that is probably the biggest thing that I look for, just based on what we've built here culturally. That's something that I look into right away. So I would say that, and we're a very open book interview process, meaning they get a chance to talk to everybody and they can ask them anything. And we're very much an open book in that regard with it. And then, what is their follow-up based on their interest as well. So, I would say those are the, being inquisitive, and they've won somewhere.
I like that. I like that a lot. And I like the third part of that is their follow-up afterwards, because it shows their drive if there's an interest, rather than your drive chasing somebody that, it felt good, so obviously they're going to do good.
Yeah, they've got to want to do this, because I was told it's the easiest, hardest job you'll ever have. So.
It's a fact. It is absolutely the fact. All you got to do is pick up the phone and talk to people. The problem is you got to pick up the phone and talk to people that don't want to talk to you.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
So let's change gears a little bit, because the curiosity is killing me. Triathlete. What got you into that?
Well, I'm going to say my wife. So she, here in Indianapolis, we have a very large half marathon during the Indy 500 timeframe. And this was almost 15 years ago. She's like, hey, let's sign up and do this. And at this point, I wasn't a runner. I wasn't a swimmer, wasn't a biker, wasn't any of that. So she signed up to do it. I reluctantly signed up to do it as well. So in training just for running the half marathon, they were like, hey, if you can run 2 miles straight, you can train for it. So I was like, all right, well, I just put together a plan to start training for it. And so did that. And then I'm like, hey, I think I'm going to sign up for another one. So my wife goes, well, you've done a half. Why don't you do a full marathon? And I'm like, well, okay, that makes sense. So, I looked at what does it take to train for that, put together a plan, and then train for that. And then it was what's something new that we can try. And so that's how it kind of got into triathlons. It was like an indoor one at the Y was my first one, and then just kind of expanded from there. So I've kind of taken the approach of, hey, if I can train for it, I know I can do it. So I need that plan at a time. I think that's probably a little bit in business too, of, hey, I can do this if I've got a plan for it. So, and I'm the type of person, as far as when it comes to exercise, if I have an event down the road, I know I've got to I got to train for it, because I don't want to do it without training, because that's not enjoyable with it. So it's been just something to kind of keep me motivated. It helps me clean out my head and, stress relief and all those is to see how far I can kind of push myself physically.
Boy, you hit it right on the head. I love how you describe that. It cleans out your head, stress relief. I mean, pushing yourself beyond just to the point, a 2-mile run, okay? Yeah, that's a lot of work for a lot of people. But a triathlon, to me, you go beyond the mental capabilities of that person that just does the 2-mile run. I mean, you're draining your body. You're working it hard. I used to joke with people, and I don't know if you know this, but I spent 57 years racing motorcycles. In fact, I've raced in Indianapolis on the dirt track at the fairgrounds, and it's a mile track. And I tell people, the thing that I got out of racing was on a Saturday night, I'm going 100 miles an hour down the straightaway of a dirt track, and I'm bending it into a corner, and I promise you I'm not thinking about work. So I get what you're saying as far as training for a track, because it takes you beyond the comfort zone. It takes you to the, okay, I got to focus here. And that's cleaning the brain. That's profound. It really is. Last question for you. Do you have any questions for me?
No, this has been quite enjoyable, Vince. So I appreciate you taking the time to do this. This has been really good.
I appreciate you being on here. I really do. And I love your humility. I mean, there's a lot of people out there that are successful and they want to make sure everybody knows about it. Your humility is profound. It really is. And
Thank
be
you.
proud of that. You've got
Thank you.
good people. You got a solid place. 19th in the world. That's a statement, my friend. It really is. And you've really dealt with a lot of change within MRI, a lot of change. I mean, we had the banking issues. We had the COVID issues. I mean, you've seen it all. And you just deal with it. Congratulations on that.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you again.